The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's NAA iSeries webinar. I am Curtis Kitchen, the Director of Publications and Trade Show for the National Auctioneers Association. I would like to thank you for joining us for today's newest iSeries installment. iSeries is a free informational webinar series produced by the NAA in order to share auction industry knowledge and insight with NAA members and the general public. We are excited to present today's topic on how to get paid for your benefit auction services, but before we do, we want to share more with you about NAA. Headquartered in Overland Park, Kansas, NAA is the world's largest association dedicated to auction professionals and represents the interest of thousands of auction professionals in the United States and across the world. NAA is dedicated to providing educational programming and resources to help members advance themselves professionally. The NAA's mission is to provide critical resources to auction professionals that will enhance their skills and successes, and its vision is that NAA members are the preferred auction professionals used in the marketplace. Among resources provided is the iSeries, and today's session will be presented by newly elected to the NAA Board of Directors, Trisha Brauer. Trisha conducts benefit and real estate auctions and has a lot of fun doing them. She holds a bachelor's degree and also earned a master's degree in business administration with an emphasis in marketing and sales. She is a graduate of Worldwide College of Auctioneering and is a member of the National Auctioneers Association as well as state associations. She is an active member in NAA and has served on committees and is currently an instructor for the BAS designation. Trisha holds both the BAS and CAI designations. In addition, she is an instructor at Worldwide. We've talked about that. Aside from that, she also is a presenter at state and national conferences. And outside of the auction industry, she is an accomplished professor. She has been awarded Professor of the Year and has co-authored several textbooks, the most recent in September of 2016. She is happily married, and she and her husband have 2 dogs. In her free time, Trisha enjoys reading nonfiction about organized crime, traveling, and writing, and we are certainly pleased to be joined by Trisha today. Now, before the presentation begins, please note that you may take part in the conversation. Type and submit your questions at any time during the presentation, and we will get to as many of them as we can during our brief Q&A period. After that, we will ask that you also please take part in a very short 3-question poll as well. With that, Trisha, thank you for joining us today. Thank you and welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time. And Curtis, thank you for the very warm introduction. We're going to go ahead and begin today, and there's a few things that I am going to review with you on how to get paid for your benefit auction services. As the BAS instructor, the pay issue tends to be the most common question that I am asked, and either how can I get nonprofits to pay me, or how can I increase the fee that I'm already obtaining? So what we're going to go through this afternoon is our 4 main points. Number 1 is determining your worth. Number 2, knowing your value. Number 3, knowing your client. And number 4, how to get creative with those types of services. So first up, we're going to look at determining your worth. And so the very first thing I encourage individuals when they're asking about compensation is, what is your time worth to you? Because as we all know, we go to a benefit typically on a Saturday night, and that's time away from your family, that's time away from your business. And what is that time worth to you? And what forms of compensation are you looking for? Now, we know that there's different ways to be compensated. You might focus on monetary compensation. Maybe you're not looking for monetary compensation, but you're looking for exposure to the audience there to get the name about your auction company out there, which I know many auctioneers have been very successful at building other parts of their auction business with that strategy. But we are going to focus on today about the monetary part of this compensation. So a couple of things, and I joke here, is what is your time away from your business, your family, or Netflix worth? Because as we've all been asked to do that free auction before, I equivocated to, okay, well, I can, get all fancied up and go work for several hours, or I can stay at home, hang out with my husband, have a nice dinner, watch Netflix, and sit in my yoga pants. But we all know that if I'm going to not do those things, then I prefer to be monetarily compensated for that. So as you're looking at this, determine what you're worth. You can charge whatever you want to charge. You are the decision maker, and you get to determine how much you want to do an auction worth. And we're going to talk about how not all auctions, in my opinion, are created equal. The first thing when determining your worth is that when you're going to talk about the pay component with a nonprofit, one of the very first things is deciding on how you're going to have that money discussion. Now, for me, I do not like to give a flat out quote, and that is the phone call that comes in and, we're looking for an auctioneer. Are you available on this date? Yes, I am. How much do you charge? I do not flat out answer that conversation. I move into a conversation about getting to know your client, which we'll talk about here in a few moments. So you yourself, what is your time worth? What is your business worth? And what type of tone do you want to set into the marketplace? More into the meat and the bones is knowing your value. Now, I use an example here of two different watches. On the left, we have Casio, which you can buy at Walmart for $7.19. And on the right, we have a Rolex, which in doing some research, this watch retails for about $27,000, well up into $500,000. Now, watches tell time, right? That's what they do. But what are you saying and what are you selling when you are determining what your value is? We know that when people buy a Rolex, they're not buying a watch. They're not buying it to tell time, which is the exact same thing that the Casio does for $7. They're doing it because Rolex is a sign of success, personal accomplishment. Many people tend to buy this as a personal reward to themselves. And so looking at this, knowing your value, there's a lot of different competition that we're up against. For many of us, there's individuals in the marketplace that are the free auctioneer. There's the auctioneer that is the weather person. They are the TV personality. Or there's an established auctioneer that maybe is charging, maybe isn't. That is considered a professional auctioneer, and they have a huge component of the marketplace. And I can tell you from my experience that every single market has one or more of these obstacles. Every town has one or more of these obstacles. So for those of you out there that are facing it, this is not anything that is new. This is an obstacle that anyone who wants to break into this area is going to face, and knowing your value and knowing how to articulate that value to your clients, potential clients, is where you're going to be able to show your clients the value. Now, when I was younger and started working when I was a kid, I remember talking to my grandfather about making money, and he gave me one of the best pieces of advice that has held true most of my career, and that is, if you want to make money, you need to make someone's life easier, or you need to show them how they can make more money. And I encourage you to use that advice when you're working with your nonprofits. If they're calling you and wanting to hire you as an auctioneer, you can also demonstrate your value, that you are more than a fast talker if that is your business model. I know that I'm going to speak to the majority of people that are probably listening to this, and that most of you do some consulting, minimal, some consulting within it, up to probably a high level of consulting in there. So listening and getting to know your clients, what is their problem and how are you going to solve it? When you are starting to have that conversation, I encourage all of you to look at the question of why should I hire you, and make sure that you are able to articulate a clear and concise message that demonstrates value to your nonprofits. This is one of the areas where I have personally worked with some other auctioneers before, and they don't have an answer to this question. You've got to be able to go to bat for yourself. You're the person that is on that phone having the conversation, or in person giving a presentation. And if some, why should we hire your company? Why should I hire you? And they may not ask it as direct as that, but they're getting to it. Make sure you've got that answer ready to go. The next one is, how are you different? Now, I mentioned maybe the free auctioneer, the more experienced professional auctioneer, the weather person. All of us are different, okay? And we go back to the example here of the Casio and the Rolex. They're all different. And so a lot of things just also come down to preference on there. When you're working to obtain your nonprofit clients and to get hired, making sure you get a paycheck on there, you want to be able to articulate how you are different than the competition. And you can do this by doing a SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. We do those a lot in our actual business practices, but I also encourage you not only to do one for your business, but to do one for you as a person. What is it about you that is a little bit different? Is your style different? Do you have different training? For those of you that have taken the BAS and completed the BAS, then you have that credential that a lot of auctioneers do not have. Have you attended additional education that sets you apart? So find all those types of nuggets and say, this is how I'm different, and this is how I can add value to that. And the next thing about knowing your value is knowing solutions that you can provide to their problems. And this goes into the consulting piece. Now, this is an area that has worked well in my business, and where I am able to show value is because I've listened to the nonprofits over the years, and I've heard very consistent pieces of information of problems that they have. So when you're looking at this, demonstrating your value of, oh, you have a problem with your audience paying attention at the end of the night, they get a little unruly, I know how to help you solve that. Or your volunteers are not getting the type of auction items that you would like, I know how to solve that. You've been playing heads or tails for 10 years, I can give you some suggestions on something new that you can do instead of that game. And so know your value and be able to demonstrate what that value is to help solve their problems. The next component is knowing your client, getting to know them. The question of how much do I charge is a difficult answer to just give right off the bat. Now, going back to our first step of determining your worth, know what your baseline is, okay? And know what you want to go to work for. You know, is what dollar amount does it take you to leave your family, forget Netflix, and take off your yoga pants in order for you to go out and work with those clients? Everybody's baseline is different, and that baseline might move depending on a couple of variables. It might move depending on if it's a Wednesday luncheon versus a Saturday night. It might depend on if it's a Saturday in January or a Saturday in April. So that baseline might move, but it's very hard to give a flat out number without knowing what the expectations are from your client. So I would encourage you that when you begin that conversation and being able to understand how you can get paid is beginning the conversation with them. They're going to call you, or if you initiate a conversation, I often like to turn the tables and let me ask you a few questions before I explain this to make sure we're a good fit. Design a questionnaire for new clients. If you have not formalized this process, I strongly encourage you to do so. Just get a Word document, type your questions that you would like to know, have that available so that when you are speaking with potential clients, you're able to stay organized and stay focused, because every once in a while, if you're like me, we tend to get off topic a little bit, and I like to have that in front of me in order to maintain focus on there. Some things that I ask in that initial interview with them, and really the interview is a conversation. That's all that it is. I'm not drilling them. I'm just getting them to talk. That's really what this is. So use that term interview a little loosely there. So things I like to ask, first off, are some of the obvious ones. When is your event? The location of their event, number of live items. Do they do any games? Do they currently have an MC? How much money did they raise last year? I ask how much their ticket costs. Ticket cost for me is a variable that is very a good indicator on how much you can possibly charge on this one. There's a big difference usually between budgets where somebody has a $35 event ticket and somebody that has a $200 event an event ticket. So that that ticket price is really a good indicator there on how much you can probably have there to charge. So part of the reason why I like to ask them this, and one of the other questions I will also ask them is, what is their budget for a professional auction team? You would be very surprised at how many times people will give you a number. Don't be afraid to ask these questions. When it comes to how do you get paid, the number one answer is ask. You do not GET if you don't ASK. That's another saying that one of my mentors taught to me. Don't be afraid to ask those questions on there. So what is your budget? There'd be times where you might be surprised. Maybe what you were going to work for was lower than what they have budgeted, and you can maybe up your fee a little bit there. So there's a lot of advantages to that. Another reason why I like to interview clients is because they're going to hire you if they like you. Now there's some clients out there that are looking for either they absolutely have to have free, or they absolutely do not want to pay, or they're absolutely not going to pay over a certain dollar amount. And if that's their stance, then forget them, move on. Okay, move on to somebody else. It's too much work to change their mind. There's other potential clients out there. And the reason why I like to get them talking though is because the more they talk in conversation, the more their perception is going to go to have a positive review of that conversation. And if they feel like the conversation went really well, that means they're going to like you. And if they like you, that's where you start to minimize what the cost factor is, that you start to demonstrate your value to them. And then therefore, they're going to want to engage with somebody and form a partnership with somebody that they know has taken an interest in them, that they know ask the right questions, and you begin to build that trust factor. During this conversation and this interview, you can also start to hear their pain points. What are the issues that they're having? As auctioneers, we often like to give a lot of solutions to a couple of different things. And one of the number one things that I have found on how to get paid is to solve the problems that the organization has. This isn't this isn't my way, this isn't how I want to do the auction, but I can hear some of the issues that they're having and fix some of those problems for them and begin to build that rapport there. So this is all about knowing your client. And then finally, the last component I'm going to cover here is how to get creative. So different ways that you can charge. Now, the best scenario is that, you have a conversation with the client, you feel like they're a good match, they're interested in hiring you, they ask how much they charge, and you say, here's my fee, and they say, awesome, send over the contract. That is a home run right there. That's what we love, but it doesn't always go that way. There might be times when you hear the situation of, well, we don't really have a budget, or their budget is significantly lower than what your fee is. Well, now here's decision time for you. Now you have to decide a couple of things. Number one is, if they are only going to pay you X dollars amount, you have to decide if you're going to go work for that. Okay, some people aren't going to move off of that needle, and no one says that you can't make that decision if you want to. But you might be able to get creative and say, okay, well, your budget is X and my fee is, your budget is A and my fee is X. So we're a little bit between, but I think we can find a solution here. And the negotiation skills, especially a lot that I learned during CAI, have really helped me be able to negotiate a lot of my nonprofit contracts. So a couple of things. First off is talking to them about possibly raising their ticket price. So in the last section of knowing your client, I mentioned that ticket price is an indicator. A second question that I will often ask into that, or almost always ask, I should say, is when is the last time you increased your ticket prices? And if it's been more than 3 years, that's an opportunity for them to bump up their ticket price, and now you've already helped them raise some more money. What they were paying for things 3 years ago isn't the same of what they're paying now, and therefore the ticket price shouldn't be the same either. And so looking at raising those ticket prices, and that 5 to 20 bucks a ticket price can often cover your fees. I've most of my clients, and if there's some of you have done this, but of course, a few people are going to complain, but for the most part, people don't. So it's not that's not a huge blowback that you're going to experience. Another way that I've been very successful in closing that gap is to bring an actual auction item. So do you have connections to certain things? Do you know people who have condos where you could get them to donate a week somewhere? Do you own a lake house and you'd be willing to let the nonprofit donate a week at your lake house? Do you have a connection to the mayor and you can arrange for a dinner with the mayor? So what are different things that you have connections to that you could bring an item and say, hey, you know what? And you can negotiate this a couple of different ways. You can either say, whatever the item brings, that's what my fee is, or my fee is blank, and this item, might sell for more, might sell for less, but you get to keep all of it, but you still pay my fee. But this one has been very well received in my market, and it's been one that has helped me crack into some nonprofits that have traditionally paid a little bit lower fee than what I would like. The next one is a buyer's premium. So during different components of the auction, just like in our traditional auctions or our regular auctions, adding a 5, 10, a buyer's premium onto it, that can help cover your fee. as well, incorporating a new raffle. So if there's something that you can bring to the table, some of the trip raffles have been very popular, and maybe the nonprofit is doing a smaller raffle, or maybe they're not doing one at all. Kind of similar to bringing an item. Maybe you supply something for the raffle and or introduce them to a third party that can help them with developing a really cool raffle, and then again that revenue would help cover your fee. The next one is having a smaller fee, but then doing a bonus for achieving goals. This is another one that I have also personally been very successful with. As in every market, there's some free auctioneers that I go up against, and time has taught me that while they definitely have some strengths, I'm very confident in going up in the next year after them. So I will often say, okay, you raised X last year, so I'm going to come in for this very small fee, but when I make a percentage over that, what you made last year, then I would like a bonus, and we do it on a percentage structure. That way it eliminates a lot of risk for the client, and you're confident in yourself, like you're going to hit a home run, so don't be afraid to take a risk in negotiating your fees, right? Because you have the ability to control that, and it didn't go as great as you did. Well, you still got some exposure, you still got some money, and hopefully you still built a relationship that can allow you to make more changes for the next year and continue to cultivate that relationship. Use your business relationships to underwrite your fee, or bring in a new sponsor. Those two kind of go hand in hand. But if you have those business relationships that are good for the audience or good for the cause, that you can say, well, what if I was able to have somebody underwrite my fee, or bring in a new sponsor at a certain level, that could also help cover my fee. So those are some ways that I have specifically used to get more creative than just saying, well, this is my fee, and then if it's a no, and ending the conversation there. One of the lines that I use, and what I like to use with my clients, is that if money's the smallest thing preventing us from working together, that's the easiest thing for us to overcome, because I'm confident we can figure that part out, because I've also been taught by one of my greatest mentors that do the right thing and the money will follow. So that's the last piece of advice that I will leave you with. And Curtis, I'll turn it back over to you.
Trisha, thank you so much. At this time, as we mentioned earlier, we will now open the floor to our iSeries attendees who may also have questions. If you have not done so already, you can submit your question, and we will do our best to get to as many of them as we are able. Trisha, your first question: what if you've had a quote, free or cheap relationship with existing clients, and you want to try to change those? How would you start that conversation with them?
That's a good conversation to have. And again, that could be a hard precedent to follow there. The way that I've handled that before is I've used other nonprofits as competition to say, I know we've had this great relationship and we've been doing it for this fee for so long, but as you know, this is what I do for a living. We're getting higher demand for this date. We have taken your nonprofit from here to here. We've let you have this grandfathered rate for as long as we possibly can, but here's our new rates moving forward. Now, what you have to do is accept that they may not want to pay those higher fees. And so anytime you raise your fee, that or put them on a plan and say, these are our current rates. We don't want to shock you and send you to those rates all in 1 year, but over the next 3 years, here's the gradual increase that you're going to see. And throw something nice in there, as long as our performance continues to meet your expectations.
Okay. Next question then is maybe even with a newer client. I guess it could go either way, a current client or a new one. How much do you negotiate or allow the potential client to negotiate? I know you mentioned earlier that you let them do most of the talking, but how much do you let them talk when it comes down to negotiation?
Well, it kind of depends on the feel of each client as far as how much that they talk. I have learned that to be confident in your abilities, and I have a very specific fee structure. I tell them what that fee structure is. I've demonstrated my value. I tend to solve one of their problems by giving a nugget of a suggestion in there, and then I say, here are my fees. Hopefully I've gotten indication of their budget through the conversation, but if I haven't, here are your fees. How does that match up with what you were expecting to pay? And then see how they answer that question. If it's a question where they're like, oh yeah, it's about mine, good, stop talking. If it's a response of like, ooh, that's a lot higher than we were expecting, now you can kind of get into these getting creative tactics to help you find a new way to get those fees covered.
Okay, and then another question rolled in here. If you happen to be working with a client and you've provided a discount for them in the past or even currently, do you reflect the full amount on the invoice to them after, just to show that, you know, the actual discount that they saved or that you were willing to work with them on? Do you show that amount?
Absolutely. I think that you always need to demonstrate your true value on there. You know, it's the same thing. Look at any time you buy something in a retail store, the full retail price is still on there with the sale price and how much you saved. So I do think it's critical, because otherwise they're going to forget what that number is, and they're going to forget the true value of what your services are.
Okay, and then finally, the last question we'll have time for here today, just quickly, if you've not done, say someone has the education and has their BAS, how can they effectively market their services if they've not had a lot of benefit auctions, but they just they want more, and they've got the education, but they don't have the experience to show? How do they go about marketing that?
Well, a couple of things, that phrase of fake it till you make it, that holds true. Seeing if you can't go even ring or clerk for other auctioneers. I know some markets are different than others. You know, I was very thankful to live in a market where I had a lot of auctioneers who were doing benefits who said, yeah, come work for me. So I was able to, you know, I've had experience working auctions. You don't have to get into the nitty gritty details of your bio. You'd be quite surprised at how many times people don't ask you questions. And as far as obtaining business, it's a lot of just old marketing tricks. It's picking up the phone and making cold calls. It's going to networking events where decision makers within nonprofits are. There's a lot of education and networking opportunities that are specific to nonprofits. And so it's going to those and attending them and introducing yourself. And always remember, with confidence, you have the education, so you may not have a ton of experience to back it up, but what you do have is you do have knowledge, and be confident in that, and just be like, you know what, I'm the most well-educated auctioneer here, and know that, but try to go work a few auctions so that, you know, what is your experience? Oh, I have some experience in this industry, and you can develop, again, your own 30-second commercial to what you feel comfortable with.
Perfect. All right, everyone. Thank you. That will wrap up today's Q&A portion of the event. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions. We do apologize if we did not get to yours. It is now time, however, for you to give us your feedback on today's session. So please see the poll on your screen and answer the questions as they appear. We will move fairly quickly, so please answer as swiftly as you are able. The first question of 3, I've learned something today I will use when negotiating my next benefit auction. Again, that question, I learned something today I will use when negotiating my next benefit auction. Just a quick yes, maybe, or no. We'll give it just a few seconds here before we close this. So 3, 2, 1. Second question on today's poll, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest score and 1 being the lowest, how would you rate today's iSeries presentation? Again, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest score and 1 being the lowest, how would you rate today's iSeries presentation? And we thank you for those answers, and we'll go ahead and close that. And the final question in today's poll, I plan to attend the Benefit Auction Summit in Cancun. Of course, we'll have some more. We'll have some, I'm sorry? Oh, okay, we're going to skip that question, no problem. Hopefully you will join us in Cancun at the end of the month, and we've got some information on that event coming up here very quickly. Thank you so much for everyone for taking part, or to everyone for taking part in the survey. Now, as I mentioned just before we end today's session, we do have some updated information on upcoming NAA events for benefit auction professionals. The Benefit Auction Summit, as we were just talking about, is August 27th through the 29th. If you have not registered yet, now is the time. It's just a couple of weeks away. You can find more information at auctioneers.org/events. Again, auctioneers.org/events. The NAA Benefit Auction Summit, August 27th through the 29th. Also, NAA is going to host the Benefit Auctioneer Specialist class at NAA headquarters in Overland Park, Kansas. That's new. No one else has heard that yet, so we hope you will be able to attend. Again, that's the BAS class at NAA headquarters in Overland Park, Kansas on October 24th through the 26th. You can find more info and register for that event as well at auctioneers.org/BAS. auctioneers.org/events. Again, auctioneers.org/events, October 24th through the 26th, the BAS class at NAA headquarters in Overland Park. And I believe Trisha Brauer will be the instructor for that course. So we hope you can join us for that. As we close today, you will get a replay of today's session through an emailed link by the end of this week. In addition, if you are an NAA member and you've missed any previous iSeries sessions or would like to hear them again, iSeries archives are available at auctioneers.org/NAA-education. Again, auctioneers.org/NAA-education. You do need to be an active member and you will need to log in to access those. Finally, our next iSeries webinar will be Wednesday, October 4th at 2 p.m. Central. The title of this one, Your Online Auctions Are Terrible. You heard me right. Your online auctions are terrible. So be sure to sign up for that one. We're going to dive into best practices for online auctions. Really looking forward to that one. Again, that's on Wednesday, October 4th. We will be sending you specific information on that one in the near future. Thank you again for taking part in today's NAA iSeries. It concludes today's webinar. So finally, remember that the NAA iSeries exists because it's about you. Everyone, have a great afternoon.